สนับสนุนโดยพลังของทุกคนร่วมก่อเกิดเป็น AIA เราคือพลังสร้างอนาคตเมื่อทุกรายละเอียดสร้างมาเพื่อการตอบสนอง Chevrolet Cruise Engineer to Respond ใหม่ Isuzu D-Max Super Titanium น้ำดื่มสะอาดน้ำดื่มตราสิงห์
แต่ผมว่าถ้าจะให้เป็นนักการเมืองเอเชียปีที่ผ่านมาที่เราสัมภาษณ์เนี่ยที่น่าสนใจมากที่สุดคนหนึ่งเนี่ยก็คืออดีตนายกรัฐมนตรีมาเลเซียครับที่คุณวินารัตน์บินไปเพื่อที่จะถามมหาเดชโมฮัมหมัดว่าชีวิตนี่เป็นยังไงและทุกวันนี้เนี่ยยังโกรธแค้นอะไรใครหรือเปล่าพูดจาผงผางต่างๆนานาเป็นอย่างไรบ้าง
Are you happy with the way Malaysia is run right now by Prime Minister Najib Razak?
Well, I think it's okay, but we're facing this crisis, and the governing party is not as strong as before.
Southeast Asian countries these days need economic prosperity and stability more than civil liberties today.
Well, I think it's fine to have civil liberty and be poor and scrape the dustbin for food and all that. Then you can say, oh, I'm free, I can say what I like, I can walk in the town naked. You're very free, but what does it get for you? You see? If a country is to develop, there must be some restriction because one man's freedom can mean another man's loss of freedom or the community's loss of freedom.
For all the big projects that you have initiated, are there any that you consider failures?
Failures, not in terms of project. What I failed to do is to enable all the three different races to participate in the economy on an equal basis. That is where I failed.
Is Vision 2020 still on track?
On track, yes, but the rate of development is not sufficient for the target to be achieved in 2020.
But the goal is to turn Malaysia into a developed country.
Yes, the goal is still there.
You think you can see that in your lifetime?
Well, I don't know how long I'm going to live. I'm already 85 years old. 2020 is 10 years away.
You'll be only 95.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe tomorrow.
What's the legacy that you would want people to remember you?
I'm not worried about my legacy because when by that time I will be dead anyway. So what does it matter what people think?
ถ้าเกิดว่าใครชื่นชอบนะคะการออกแบบรถยนต์เนี่ยจะต้องรู้จักคนชื่อคริสแบงเกิลแน่นอนเพราะว่าเขาเป็นอดีตหัวหน้าทีมออกแบบของ BMW นะคะมาเมืองไทยทั้งทีก็ต้องสัมภาษณ์กันหน่อยค่ะเพราะว่าตอนที่สมัยอยู่ที่ BMW การออกแบบรถยนต์ของเขาเนี่ยก็ค่อนข้างจะฉีกกรอบนะคะแล้วก็มีกระแสวิพากษ์วิจารณ์ทั้งชอบไม่ชอบเนี่ยเยอะค่ะเพราะฉะนั้นได้พูดคุยกับเขาเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของการออกแบบแรงบันดาลใจนะคะแล้วก็วัฒนธรรมที่แตกต่างกันทั้งหมดนี้สร้างความน่าสนใจให้กับผลงานได้ยังไงบ้างต้องไปฟังเขาอธิบายค่ะ
Why do you like design? What do you find so interesting about it in the first place?
Well, it's a very creative enterprise, and this idea that things are being made and created, I really like to be involved in.
What are the major challenges in designing in today's world when everything moves so fast?
Well, keeping up with that, I suppose, but maybe more importantly, making something significant. It used to be design empowered people, helped our world in that way, and it seems like now design is a lot about feeding consumption and just creating objects to be displayed. I believe design should kind of glue the world together.
When we talk about creativity, is it more about a person's talent or is it skills that can be acquired?
I think it's a lot about skills that can be acquired. and there is talent in everything in life, but a lot of that talent is the willingness to persevere, even though times are tough, and the ability to put in the hours to actually get good at something. The famous 10,000 hour rule applies to designers like everything else.
How much does culture or the country where you're from affect how much you think about designing?
Oh, I would love to think it affects it a lot, but I also think a lot of designers try to ignore their own culture and say, I don't belong to that, I'm not an American, or I'm not a Frenchman, or whatever. I'm a designer, I belong to design. I would like to think that your culture adds something to you that other cultures don't have, and that's why it's special. And they have their own specialness, but it's different, which is why sometimes it's painful to see the same type of product being made in other parts of the world with no sense of added value of that culture other than the labor is cheap. That's not very nice.
How would you find creativity in Thailand in particular?
Something that should be supported, something that needs continuous inspiration and continuous encouragement.
แต่ผมสังเกตนะครับว่าแฟนๆเนี่ยชอบอีกเรื่องหนึ่งที่ไม่ใช่นักการเมืองไม่ใช่นักออกแบบแต่ว่าเป็นคนที่อยู่เบื้องหลังทำหนังดังๆอย่างโอลิเวอร์สโตนเป็นยังไงเจอเขาแล้ว
เนี่ยก็จะต้องบอกเลยนะคะว่าเขาจะมีลักษณะพิเศษก็คือค่อนข้างจะต่อต้านอเมริกันเอง เพราะฉะนั้นหลายอย่างที่เขาทำหรือว่าหลายภาพยนตร์หลายสารคดีที่เขาทำเนี่ยก็จะค่อนไปทางนั้นนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นเขาจะวิพากษ์วิจารณ์ตัวของนโยบายสหรัฐเองหรือว่าจะเป็นสื่อของสหรัฐดุเด็ดเผ็ดมันค่ะ Mrs. Stone, I heard that you're working on a documentary on the Iranian president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Is that right?
That's not right, no.
No?
I'm sorry, that is an old internet rumor from
Right.
3 years ago. No, we approached the Iranian government about 3 years ago, I believe, to make a documentary. They turned us down, and then suddenly they came back to us a few months later and said, go ahead. And at that time, we couldn't do that because we were doing a movie, The George Bush. It was over the situation with Iran had further degenerated with the United States. So, I mean, at a certain point I gave up because, you know, it's hard to make these kind of movies about America's perceived enemies. And Iran reached a place where after making the Castro movies, I made 3 documentaries. What I don't think is fair about America is that they, in their news media, they create the enemies. They create sometimes straw men. They make them worse than they are. There's very little dissent on the television allowed. In other words, you cannot have an opposite picture of that man. And I think this is a shortcoming of the American media.
South America is moving very left somehow.
Well, very left is a dangerous word for America. I mean, put it this way. The poor people of Latin America who have been abused and downtrodden for centuries, partly through Spanish rule, empire, through slavery, and through American imperialism, have now reached a higher level of sustenance. Their standard of living has improved under Chavez, under Morales in Bolivia, in Peru, in Argentina, and in Brazil. And these people, the reason these people are elected is not because they overthrew the governments, like in Castro's age, but because they were elected democratically. And now America seems to be very peeved that these people have been elected. I think America has made it clear that it's not interested in fundamental change in South America.
So as a director, are you trying to promote peace and understanding as well?
I'm trying as a director to promote peace and understanding. I'm trying to promote understanding. Peace you can only do so much, but understanding could be the road to peace. If you can talk to your so-called enemy and see what he's like, you have the beginnings of a conversation.